Hey everyone, it's Alex, and welcome to the Marvel Snap Decks of the Week, the weekly series where I showcase the top 10 best decks in Marvel Snap. And if you'd like to support my content, hit that like button. It's the only thing that YouTube cares about. With that being said, let's talk about the 11 decks we're talking about this week. That's right, we got 11 this week. We've got a bonus deck, because this bonus deck has some cracked stats. A 57% win rate and a .72 cube rate. That is astronomical, and you might be thinking, Alex, why isn't it on the regular top 10 then? Why is it a bonus deck? Well, because it's only got like 150 games on it. So yeah, we have a really small sample size, but what's there is insane. So I want to showcase to you, if in case you want to tank the stats or whatever, it's up to you, but it's pretty cool. I mean, it's a Havoc deck. It's a Havoc deck. All these cards like to get hit with Agent Venom. We got Havoc in there. We got Madam Web. I like the use of Mysterio and Elsa Bloodstone. This is pretty neat, right? Like, it's a pretty fascinating deck. Obviously, you got the Bast in there to hit, the things in your hand, the Agent Venom to hit the things in the deck. It's a cool list, and if you want to give it a shot, give it a shot. Add some games. Let's see how it holds up. Maybe it'll be on the top 10 next week, but this deck is a cook, man. I think it's great. It's pretty cool, and anytime you got some Havoc gameplay, I'm going to be all in. So I like this one a lot. Now we go to the top 10. We got a little more statistics there. Now this here is a fascinating anti-venom deck. It is essentially a minor modification on the standard Ajax decks we've been seeing. We've been having like these Ajax decks kind of like hovering around like solid spots in the meta, like a surprising good percentage of win rates and cube rates and stuff like that. And so this iteration of it utilizes anti-venom. And naturally, this deck has the Luke Cage, which ironically, these decks weren't usually running Luke Cage. They traditionally hadn't been because they wanted Ajax to get even higher. But now what's happening is Ajax is just big enough. If it gets to the Gilgamesh numbers, it's fine. So we've been running Luke Cage in it, and that makes it a very natural inclusion for something like an anti-venom. The deck's running pretty good. You got a 55 cube rate. You got a 56% win rate. That is great for a Hazmat Ajax deck. So I've been playing with this quite a bit, and obviously with the new Agatha show, there's a character in here, and I don't want to do any spoilers. There's a character in here that I've been playing a little more because of the Agatha show. So it's cool. It's a cool deck, and I think that you should definitely give it a shot if you're interested in trying out anti-venom. This is the best performing anti-venom deck right now. It makes the top 10, which is more than what I expected from the card. So hey, that's at least a dub for the new card if you happen to pull it. Going into number 9, U.S. Agent back in this deck too. It is Sarah Control. Now, Sarah Control has been really fascinating. It's been playing a role in the meta ever since Toxin has really started to take over. Toxin Bounce and its various forms have been at the absolute top of the meta, and I'm sure we're going to be talking about it again this week. But the key thing about this deck is there's been a lot of confusion because I've been seeing a lot of people say, well, why is Invisible Woman in this deck? Invisible Woman seems so weird. Well, it actually makes perfect sense. With the Invisible Woman, you're able to kind of counterplay the throwing of initiative that the bounce decks often do. What they often do is they often bounce everything back, and then there's nothing on the board. You end up winning initiative, and you can't Shang-Chi anything, you can't Killmonger anything. So what Invisible Woman does, it effectively allows you to play Killmonger or Shang-Chi or Shadow King behind it and ensure that at the end of the game, when all the bounce cards come back down, like the Silver Sables and everything, you're able to Killmonger them, right? So that's the purpose of Invisible Woman. It allows you to play into these bounce type decks that are trying to constantly give away initiative so that they can kind of reveal last and avoid Skillmonger and other counterplays, okay? So that's why Invisible Woman's there. If you want to play Ghost, you can too. Functionally, it kind of does the same thing, but Invisible Woman is a higher cube rate card because, well, the cards are face down. This deck isn't that popular yet, but it should be. It's got an amazing cube rate, and if you want to rank up, if you want to do well in Infinity Conquest, whatever it is you're doing right now, this is obviously a good call because it just has an answer to pretty much everything. And we're not even done with Sarah. We've got Sarah Surfer here. Now, this is a version of Sarah Surfer that's running Agent Venom. As you'll see, I got a lot of cards here that generally like to get hit with the Agent Venom. The only one that really doesn't is Copycat to some degree. It only loses 1, and Copycat's value is not generally in the stat line. I mean, obviously, stat line helps too, but it's obviously in the effect as well. The deck just runs well. Right now, you're seeing a lot of Iron Man. A lot of Iron Man because of Agent Venom. Agent Venom loves hitting Iron Man. It loves hitting Mystiques and stuff like that. And as a result, Rogue is a very high cube equity card right now. Snap condition, if you see an Iron Man down on the board, they're often relying on that Iron Man, especially as it gets hit with anti-venom because it represents a massive power spike, and you just rob them of that. It's one of the biggest plays you can play with Rogue. You steal the Iron Man and you just double the power in your location. It's like you just simply win that location, right? So this deck's doing very well. A solid cube rate at 0.40, 57% win rate. I mean, listen, This does everything. And I love Surfer. This isn't even the last Surfer deck we're talking about this week. That's how weird this week has been. So anyways, number 8, Sarah Surfer. You'll love to see it. Toxin by Night. This is the Werewolf by Night version of the deck. Now, this was a top performer last week. It does not surprise me that it's still running a 58% win rate, but its cube rate has come down. Werewolf by Night in my testing, I even said this last week, it feels so clunky. I still don't think Werewolf by Night's where we want it to. It's still doing well. Like, I don't want to like completely shut it down because it's still in the top 10, number 7, 58% win rate. Like, it's doing good, but maybe I'm just kind of like jaded by what Werewolf by Night used to be. I mean, that was cracked. It had to get nerfed, but it still feels clunky enough that like I'm not sold on it. But anyways, this deck is performing, and if you're a Werewolf by Night stan, then you're going to like playing it. I just think there's better versions of Bounce. I mean, statistically, there are better versions of Bounce that aren't Werewolf by Night. And that's what I kind of suspected last week as well. So, seeing a little bit of a dip here on the stats of Werewolf by Night's version of this Toxin by Night style deck. But overall, we got another one we're going to be talking about soon, so don't you worry. Toxin is still just damn fine. Now, Darkhawk has seen some changes with the nerf to Rockslide, and that's to be expected, right? And Rockslide goes to a 4 cost, things got to change a little bit. Now, what we're seeing here is this is a deck that has been kind of consistent for the last little while. It's added Agent Venom now, as pretty much everything has. It's added Juggernaut as well, and you're protecting the Darkhawk under the Cosmo. This is going to be pretty important because we are seeing lots of Rogue out there right now. A lot of the tech decks are running Rogue. Cosmo prevents Rogue from stealing the Darkhawk or the Iron Man. So this deck tends to really take advantage of Cosmo. Cosmo is also very valuable into these bounce lists, so you can kind of slide in under a location. Like, for instance, say you see like an Iceman and a Sable or something. You know they're going to bounce that with Toxin or Beast or whatever. You put your Cosmo there, right? Prevent the play from happening. So Cosmo's been a very high equity card here. We also have the Black Widow Absorbing Man play, which is just absolutely tilting. Overall, Darkhawk, a 58% win rate and a 0.38 cube rate. It's pretty damn good. It's just damn good. Well, it's ye old faithful. It's Zoo. I don't know what else I want to say about Zoo. I mean, it's literally the same deck as it's been for months. I might actually stop including it on this list. Like, you know, not just because it's not good, but since you guys already know, right? Like, what else am I going to say about Zoo? What am I going to... Yeah, it's adding Cosmo now. It's like, that's the big exciting thing. It's got Cosmo. Everyone's adding Cosmo to counter the bounce and all that stuff, right? And it's a good deck. It's doing phenomenal. It's just like, it's kind of just been the same old thing. 58% win rate, 0.40 cube rate, largely carried by the Gilgamesh and the Mockingbird. Marvel Boy has been a staple in it. I like to see Kate Bishop being a core component of this deck as well. It's just been a good list for the longest time. I still can't believe Shauna has proven to be a staple in the meta. Like, Shauna has been in this meta nonstop since her buff to a 3/4. And of course, Gilgamesh's buff as well. They got buffed at basically the same time, and so it makes sense that this deck was like, oh, it's good now, right? So yeah, Zoo's still good. If you want to play Zoo, you still can. Just be very wary of those Invisible Woman Skillmonger games because they will wipe your board pretty damn hard. Going to number 4, it is Move. Now, this has been a very consistent performer over the last several weeks. A 58% win rate and a remarkable 0.57 cube rate. This deck's no joke. And it's funny because it actually has some of the lowest play rates of this top 10. Because people just don't want to play Move. Like, that's just the reality of it. Like, we have a really good Move deck. It's been ironed out. This is legit. It took a while to get there. Madam Web's here. Aranya's here. They're all here. No one's playing the deck. 0.57 cube rate. Amongst the absolute highest we have. 58% win rate. Top 4. If you have been waiting for a reason to play Move, I present Exhibit A to play Move. You know what I mean? And the only thing that's, like, problematic is that Scream is still good, and we'll talk about Scream in a sec, but Scream is still good, and obviously Scream kind of messes this up a little bit, but like, Scream isn't actually that popular either. Like, it exists, it's being played more than this is. This deck is good, guys, and if you want to play Move, now would be the time, because honestly, it is a good performer, and this is a deck that showcases that. I was just alluding to it. Scream is running a 59% win rate, and still a fantastic cube rate at 0.46. The cube rate's actually higher this week than it was last week. And it's been hovering around like these like good ranges of like 0.35. Now it's in the 40 range. Like, it is a really good deck. Scream is legit. And it surprises me because I keep saying this. When I play this deck, I'm like, Cannonball doesn't feel great. Magneto doesn't feel great. If you don't draw Scream, doesn't feel great. So it's like, it's this deck that like seems like when I play it, it hates me. And then when everyone else plays it, it just pops off. Scream, Kingpin on 1, Scream on 2. then disaster ensues, right? So the deck's performing really well. Aggregate statistics, this is actually still really relatively popular. It's good. So if you want to play Scream, definitely play it. And as I said before, no one's really playing moves, so it's not a call against the meta necessarily. But what it's doing is it does counter the werewolf decks. That's key. Like werewolf is technically moving, so that's a thing. Another knock against the werewolf, like I was talking about. But yeah, if you want to play Scream, you definitely can. At 59% win rate, it's legit. Going to the top two, we're already at 59% win rate. Are we going to get into the 60s? Yes, we are. 60% win rate at 0.44 cube rate. Patriot Surfer. Patriot Surfer has been one of those decks. It's like always kind of hovering around meta relevance, and when it comes into the meta, it makes a splash. And I think that Agent Venom and Bast do a lot here for like the Mysterios, for the Brood, and obviously for the Patriot, because you can Patriot, then you can Mystique, you can Iron Man, you can Mystique, and then they can also be buffed with both Bast and the Agent Venom. There's a lot of double dipping here with regards to these kind of boosting style effects. You're running Hood in a deck with Bast and Venom, obviously, right? Because you want to get that value, but you also got a Wasp. It's really cool because Wasp allows you to not only get hit by the Bast, it allows you to get hit by the Agent Venom, and it allows you to get buffed by the Patriot. There's a lot to love about this particular deck. Its stats don't lie. It's really good. And it's funny because it actually cuts the Absorbing Man. You don't usually, traditionally we've used Absorbing Man alongside Brood because you obviously those don't have the abilities either, so they get buffed by the Patriot. And if you're missing a card, like if you don't have Sage or whatever, you could run Absorbing Man, I guess. It's a good substitution. But this deck is pretty tight. I like how it's playing. I did some testing with it. I'm like, you know what? I like this. I like this a lot. So this deck is really neat. Comes in at number 2. And as we go to number 1, a reminder, guys, hit that subscription button if you'd like to support our quest to 100,000 subscribers. We're on our way. We just might make it this year in 2024. Number 1, it is Toxin Bounce. I mean, this should come as no surprise. Toxin has been really, really good. 61% win rate, 0.44 cube rate. Incredible stats all the way across the board. Hitmonkey's been carrying in this deck. Like, it was so funny in my initial testing. I was like, do we play Hitmonkey? Do we not play Hitmonkey? These decks want Hitmonkey, man. Hitmonkey was so much better, in my opinion, than Werewolf by Night. It feels so good to play down that Sage, bounce it back, hit it again later on. There's so much to like about this deck. Nico, an absolute requirement. And finally, we have Iceman getting the respect it deserves. It's in this list. It had traditionally been getting cut from some of the top decks, and now it's in the top deck. This was a call that we made on the Snapchat too. Iceman was being underappreciated in Bounce because you don't get that that feedback of like, oh look, I just piggied their thing. Iceman silently ruins their hand, and you don't always realize that effect because they might just not play the card. You might not realize you hit their Sarah or whatever. So good to see Iceman making this deck. And once again, Agent Venom, literally all over the place. It's got that season pass plot armor. This card is absolutely cracked. Thank you so much for watching, guys. I appreciate every single one of you, and we'll see you on that next Marvel Snap video.